Hey, how are you?
How you doing, man? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry for the delay.
No, don't worry, don't worry. At least I got my
Um,
time zones right because the last time I interviewed an Australian filmmaker, I was an hour off, so it was actually half one. I should have been interviewing them, so it was. It's actually all right. Don't worry.
how have you been?
Good man. I thought things would wind down a little bit after the end of the festival, but it's
Oh, it
actually
never does.
no. It's kind of like doing that, and then it's just gone back up. So
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy with follow up with the judges, speaking to the fine filmmakers, and wanting to celebrate horror all year round.
Mhm.
Things have just kind of elevated quite a bit now, and we've got possibly a big name in horror as a sponsor next year, but we've just got to kind of cross fingers on that.
Oh, wow.
There's a strong possibility on a pay-per-view horror channel that's going to support us. So we're just waiting to hear about that.
Who's your horror streaming provider over in the UK? Is it
Uh,
Peacock?
no, there's a quite a few. One of them is Shudder. It's a lot of the Amazon
Yeah,
channels. I think Shudder's owned by AMC, but there's a few. Um,
we only just got Shudder in Australia.
yeah, it's pretty decent. It's actually pretty decent. And there's a possibility we've got a partnership with one of them, which is amazing. So I've got to get things aligned up in terms of business. You know, the cross the T's and make sure everything's a limited company and all of that,
Yeah,
making things legitimate before we can do any of that.
yeah.
So, how many interviews have you done for Gollum now?
Okay, so I think this will be my first real Golem-centric interview. So this is an exclusive for
Ah,
Hellbound.
great, yeah, great. That's fantastic.
Everything else has like I've done a podcast and I've done two podcasts. That's all kind of been summing up my body of work, and
Yeah.
then kind of the catalyst being like the climax being Golem. So hasn't
So
been completely Golem centric.
so this is a real treat for us because we've interviewed, I think, four of the eight best film nominees so far. And I spoke to Angel, the filmmaker behind Nom, earlier this morning.
Oh, that was such a great film.
Yeah. And what did you think of the films overall, the ones you saw?
Um, let's put it this way: I am honored to be in good company, great company. I thought all like they're all really good. Like I think you guys, I think the eight, it was eight, right, or
Yeah,
nine
that's eight.
films.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, eight films. I think the eight that you presented, there was variation in kind of subgenres of horror. They were all very well produced. Um, I mean, like some do it for you more than others, but
yeah,
there were none that were like, I mean, like I said, I was in good company. They were all really good. I was inspired by all of them in some way, be it story wise, execution wise,
yeah.
um,
Definitely. There's different approaches
design
across the board, wasn't there?
wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No, it was,
yeah, the approach by all of the filmmakers from the filmmaker from Sweden, Cindy Stenberg, yourself, Clint. Oh my god, I forget his surname now. Clint from that created the music video with the band. It was
yeah.
just across the board. Clint Lewis. Across the board, it was different approaches, and that's what we kind of whittled down with the judges' help. The best eight films, and it was a great process in the end. It was really difficult, kind of whittling down. And we had a little bit of feedback on the festival saying, "Oh, why didn't you show all the films?" And when I sent those emails out, I said, this is based on the experience of hosting the first horror festival. It's my
Mm.
second festival this year, but my first horror. It would have been 6 hours. The show would have been at least 6 hours long, and no one's going to watch the 6 hour show. So for next year, we're going to do it slightly differently. We'll probably do it over 2 days where we'll show all the films and then like a curated list for the judges. And we've already secured one judge already for next year, which is amazing. Um,
Sweet.
a very cool one, which I'll actually give you an exclusive on in just a sec. But thank you very much, Ryan, for coming on board the festival. Thank you for appearing on the Hellbound interviews. It's a real treat for us, and I think the first thing I've got to say to you is what you got out of your film and from in terms of direction, performance, story, and thank you for being so accommodating with your film as well, because I totally understand from our our correspondence what you've got to do in terms of the festival circuit in Australia. But it was a real treat to receive your film, Golem. I think I got this little statue I picked up in Prague about 5 years ago of a golem,
Oh yeah.
and it looks so similar to the one that's broken in the film. But that's the classic design, isn't it? The kind of mushroom top golem.
It's because that was like our nod to the Paul Wegener, the 1923 silent film Golem.
Yeah.
And I guess so that was like an Easter egg in the film. And I guess what I like, what we said, it's like we're kind of every golem that we've seen in cinema prior, they've all been these kind of Frankenstein monster type things, but they seem they're powerful, but they seem very, very gentle, almost like gentle giants. And
Yeah.
it's like we're kind of almost literally breaking the old notion of the archetype, of the icon, of the trope, and introducing our guy who's, just this crude, big lumbering bit of clay.
Yeah, it reminded me the monster in terms of the design, and I think the choice of stop motion was really nice and creating that. How long did that
Was
take to put
intentional.
together? Yeah.
I've always been a huge fan of the medium of stop motion animation. I'm a huge Ray Harryhausen fanboy,
Yeah.
and I think it shows in the film. But it was very important to me that the character at one point we were considering doing a practical golem, a latex puppet or something like that. But I really liked the idea of what it's made of actually dictated the medium that we created him with. And in terms of the process, so the golem character was and it was designed, built, and animated by Norman Yeend, who is a Sydney-based stop motion animator. He's worked on a bunch of stuff over the years, and I think he's very experienced. So I think it took like a week to do 18 shots of the golem. The challenge more was integrating it within the environment.
Absolutely.
That's because then obviously you have to relight the character in post, and you've got to key him in, and you've got to feel like he's there.
Yeah, I'll give you full props on that. It's really seamless how you've done that.
Oh, thank you.
I think it feels as though it belongs there. And the thing I love about stop animation is it has this unnatural movement to it. And I think that gives it the kind of sinister vibe. When you watch those skeletons is it Jason and the Argonauts?
Jason and the Argonauts,
It has this really evil feeling to it because of the way it moves. And I think stop motion has this kind of real quality to it that isn't really seen anywhere else. But I really enjoyed the film, and the production value is off the chart. I think you made it a fantastic film. And one of my first questions was, how did you kind of get started in filmmaking? Was it something you've kind of grown up with, or was it influenced by college or school or university?
Well, I've always loved the medium of film. I grew up in a very creative household where my parents encouraged both my sister and I to be super creative, and that took on a number of mediums. We were making films with VHS camcorders. I'm showing my age here now. Drawing and writing and all of that. And my parents, they grew up in the late 50s and 60s. So they're part of the television age, and a lot of those great monster movies that I love, like King Kong and The Bride of Frankenstein, and like any of Hitchcock's films, they first saw them not in a cinema, but they saw them kind of like the Sunday afternoon movie on television. And this was the age of horror hosts, where they would have the late night horror movies. And some of them were great, some of them were B-grade trash. But in my generation, it was kind of like that ritual was kind of resurrected, because we were the VHS generation. So every Friday after school, we would go to the local video store, and Mum would pick out ones that she remembered seeing as a kid in the classic section.
Oh, I see.
So I remember seeing The Wolfman and Psycho and all those Universal monster movies and the Harryhausen stuff at such a young age. And that, you know, I've always loved filmmaking, and it probably wasn't until I was 15 or 16 when, you know, school was winding down and you had to think of your career post school, what I wanted to do. And I went into media arts production. That's what I studied at university. And it's just something that it's something I've been honing for the last 10 years. My first professional job was in advertising, in creating television commercials and online content. And that kind of gifted me with this discipline of micro filmmaking, of short filmmaking, of how much you can get away with in a short period of time.
Absolutely.
Without overwhelming the audience. And then I went into television, and the filmmaking, I'm always making films in my off time, always. That's the dream.
So I see that you're a big Hitchcock fan, and he was one of my early favorites. I remember picking up a VHS version of The Lady Vanishes. And the series of early Hitchcock films that I bought were the early English films like 39 Steps, Lady Vanishes. But the versions I had a Tony Curtis introduction. And
wow.
A really odd, like older Tony Curtis. But they're introducing the films, and I loved Hitch from there. So this is
I've got Vertigo canvas print.
I love Vertigo.
That's my favorite Hitchcock film.
Like that opening of Vertigo. Exactly, that opening of Vertigo is the beginning of The Matrix. So you can see the Wachowskis' huge influences from influenced by Hitch. So
totally.
This is a little bit jumping ahead, but what did you think of winning the Judges' Pick Award from Joe Alves, who worked directly with Hitchcock on Torn Curtain? Yeah, what did you think of that?
That was okay. So that was part of my French. I lost my shit when I heard that it was him. Because I love the man's work. Jaws is just this phenomenal film in the history of cinema.
Yeah.
It's one that I revisit regularly. I just picked up a Jaws Hallmark ornament for my Christmas tree this morning, actually.
Fantastic.
But Joe Alves also, Close Encounters, but Torn Curtain, but also one thing that he did work on, which has a huge influence on my filmmaking practice, was he was the production designer of Rod Serling's Night Gallery.
Yeah.
Night Gallery being the project that Serling attached himself with after the Twilight Zone. And I've always considered the Golem, my film Golem, was almost going to be filmed in black and white. I almost kind of like the idea of it being like, I pitched it to my collaborators as it's kind of like a lost Twilight Zone episode, or it's a lost Night Gallery episode, or a lost Outer Limits episode, because like Rod Serling, I was kind of making a comment on something on race and religion through the lens of a horror film and through a horror icon like the Golem.
Absolutely. And I think I spoke to Joe and his daughter, who's a huge horror fan, and they loved all the films, but they were really kind of keen on yours especially, and that's why he picked it. And when I interviewed him and asked him to be a judge, it was obviously a huge honor for our festival, and it's our first year of festival. And like Angel said earlier about when I spoke to him about Nom, I've been extremely lucky, or we've been extremely lucky to get the judges we had, and we were really honoured to have your film in the festival because I think it was so different to all the others. That's what I loved about it. That's why that list came to be in terms of the 8 films, because they're all so unique in their own ways. Like the chap that made The Animator, I didn't
Oh, that
realize
was fantastic. I loved it.
that film came out this year, and I didn't. When I looked at where it came from, its original source, it had 34 million views online. That
Wow.
film, and he's just done an advert for New Balance in the US, and
Mhm.
I think he's based in the he's based in the US as well, Trent Shy. But we had a real treat with your film. And where was the film shot?
So we're Sydney based, so Sydney, Australia. Um, so that was that the that was shot in a basement in a house in the basically smack bam in the centre of Sydney. And that had been converted into the person's entertainment room. So before we came in with our crates and table and all our shit, that was there was like LED TV and modern sofas and all of that. But I found that through a location scouting company, a boutique that was just starting up. We were actually one of
Oh
their first
wow.
clients.
Okay.
And because before I approached them, I had approached numerous historically listed places. And because it's a self-funded film, I could not afford
The
the
huge money. Yeah.
fees that they were throwing at me. So that was very lucky. But it was also carpeted and everything like that. And
Wow,
so it was just,
you achieved something great with that. That does
well, that
not look like a finished film at all. It's you've taken it apart, which is brilliant. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the production design, because the little details, obviously, like the costumes were fantastic. I think your performers, your actors are excellent. And
thank you.
what's the chap that plays the SS officer? What's that actor's name?
Our as in the main officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Jamie Leonardo, and he's basically he's the Pope of Sydney's underground scene.
Right.
So he's he's a movie critic and runs a film archive, and does a bit of acting in his off time. MC, he's invited to all the film festivals that have a kind of a genre or cult film aspect to it.
Yeah.
And he kind of introduces or runs the publicity for it.
Wow.
So last year at one of our underground film festivals, it was also the year that Alex Proyas was debuting the restored version of Spirits of the Air, Gremlins of the Clouds, his very first film.
Yeah.
And Jamie actually was the person who opened the film and conducted the Q&A with Mr. Proyas after that.
That's incredible. I think his performance is great. I love how he had so much presence in the film, and it's a small role. Obviously, it's a short film, but he comes across as obviously super arrogant straight away. But then the way his face kind of drops off, and I think that's probably my favorite shot of any film we received. Is is that little? Just I think you move up just a little bit, you tilt up just a little bit, and you look at his face, because it just drops off. And I think it was brilliant, and that's really nice to have him in your film, and he's so kind of influential in the kind of underground film circuit.
Yeah. Well, I told him before we started rolling, and before we started rolling the camera, I said to him, "Look, this is a Hammer film, and you're my Peter Cushing or my Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Take whatever you will out of that direction and go with it." And I think seriously, I could see Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing, although he thought he was channeling more Conrad Veidt from Casablanca.
Oh my God! Yeah,
Conrad, and of course Césaire in Cabin of Dr. Caligari. So
I love Conrad. There's a film where he plays a spy, and he's based a German spy, and he's in the UK. I think it's called Blackout, something like that. Is
that with Bogart?
No, it's not with Bogart. I'll send you a link to it, but
Oh, please do. I love
he's
it.
a wonderful actor, and his silent era work, when you see him in Casablanca, the way he gives someone a look, like he
Mm.
says so much with a look. And I think I can see the comparisons. Yeah, he did it. He was a wonderful actor back in the day. So when did you originally have the idea for Gollum?
Oh, so Golem is actually, it's my gift to my 18-year-old inner child, the 18-year-old Ryan. Because when I was 18, I was I was a keen student of modern history at school, and we studied the rise and fall of the Weimar Republic, and then of course the rise of the Third Reich.
Yeah.
And what the rabbit hole that those studies took me down was the kind of the occult and the occult aspect of the era, and what Hitler was trying to achieve with Germania, and what the basically what the art scene was between World War One, the end of World War One, and World War Two, or the start of World War Two, where we had those great German expressionist films, Nosferatu, Caligari, Faust, of course, the Golem. And I always liked, and I've always been a keen student of folklore from all over the shop. And I always said, well, one day I would love to adapt that character to the Nazi Germany setting, or the Nazi-occupied Prague setting, as it came to be in our film, because every other interpretation of the character, the character was always kind of operating in the Middle Ages. When the Jewish people were persecuted by the Roman Empire, and I'd never seen the character kind of working in a more modern setting.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, well, one day, it took me about 12 years to get to that point, but we got there.
And it was really nice to hear that Alex Proyas tried to come up with a feature idea based on that Gollum setting as well, that character. And
well, he did achieve the Golem somewhat with the Sphinx in Gods of Egypt.
That's true. I really enjoyed Gods of Egypt, and it's incredible that he got so much criticism, and he's born in Egypt, and he got so much criticism for the way he produced the film. But I really, really enjoyed it, and he enjoyed making the film through talking to him about the film, and it was a pleasure, obviously, to have him as a judge as well. So when you came up with the initial concept, kind of, have you got a team of people you've always worked with, or was that something you kind of farmed out? Did you kind of look for people to work with?
Well, this was the first. Well, before this, I had maybe a few collaborators. So Nick Stathopoulos, who was the art director, production designer of Golem, I'd done multiple. We co-directed a bunch of horror shorts prior to that. So I'd worked with him quite a bit. But this is my first time working with a cinematographer who was an old friend of mine. First time working with a sound designer and a mixer. First time working with someone in location. At this point, it was my third collaboration with Neely Hay, who did the score for the film.
Yeah, that was excellent. Really nice.
Yeah, the score is mind-blowing. It's one of the few. It was one of the absolute joys of the film. But this was the first time. I'm such a do-it-yourself kind of filmmaker, DIY filmmaker, to the point where this was the first time where. But I've always loved collaboration, and I've always, because that's what I've got to do in my day job. I work in TV, and I've got to work with so many different people.
Absolutely, yeah.
But this was the first time I kind of invited people into my sandbox. And I wasn't precious, I was never precious or pig-headed about the product. I was always like, look, guys, I'm inviting your expertise here. If there is a better way or more inventive way of doing this, please speak up. I don't know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was so
That's the
fantastic.
thing. All you've got to do is get those people to buy into your idea. They've got to be running the same race as you, because the last thing you want is someone saying, "Yeah, I'll do it. That's great," and then they kind of let you down over a course of time or something. They need to have the same kind of vision, and obviously, you clearly laid that out to those people because of what you've achieved with the film. And yeah, it's the music, the score in particular. I absolutely love it, and the sense of dread.
Very lush.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did you consider that a huge step forward in what you were producing or you were directing? Because you were saying that, working with a sound designer, with someone composing the score, was it a big step forward from what you've produced before?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because there's so much more to it, isn't there? When you've got to bring all these elements in it, and they're quite big elements as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, naturally, I was very specific. I had ideas like, this is how I want the character to sound. This is how I want the music to be and that. But they were Mia Lee, who was the composer, Mia Lee Hay, and Georgia Collins, who was the sound designer and who did a phenomenal job on the mix of the film.
Yeah.
They just were able to from all the references that I gave them, and
It's like, and it was really nice to see a period film, and with what you were setting out to do and working with all these people, did you work with the DOP in storyboarding? Did you have the visual kind of where you wanted to go with it planned out? How did you produce that element of it?
so I storyboard everything that I do. I mean, you got to go in with a game plan. You can't do these things
And
loose and on the
it
fly.
makes you kind of work closer to a budget, doesn't it? You can get a kind of more accurate budget when you do that, I guess.
Exactly. And so I storyboarded that with Nick, our art director. And then we did a location recce where we checked out the location. And my DOP, Tim, he had his little DSLR camera, and we basically did a live action storyboard where
Great, yeah.
I stood in for all the characters. I did my best German officer. I did my best Jewish rabbi. I did my best golem. And that then became like a shot list. So, because you had to storyboard something, but then you had to be prepared to change it to adapt to the new environment that you were shooting in.
Absolutely. How long did it take to shoot the film?
One day.
Is that with both? Obviously, some people might not have seen, depending on where they are, seen the second part of the film. So it's just one day for everything.
No. Okay, so it was one day to film. I wish I had two, but I just didn't have the budget for two.
Yeah.
I shot all the Nazi scenario that was in the sneak peek. I shot that all in one day in the basement. The ending scene, the kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, the nasty little epilogue or twist ending, that came very late in post-production. And that
nice. It was. I like how you kind of twisted the whole film, because it could have been structured completely differently. But I really like what you did with that, because the filmmakers of the judges saw it, but obviously based on what we kind of agreed, it wasn't seen publicly that way. But they all kind of saw it slightly differently, what that really meant, what they were doing with the book, what they were doing with the golem, why she was watching it. So it was really nice to see other people see that and see it in a different way.
I guess.
I think that's a great scene. It's a great scene.
Oh, thank you. That was shot a year to the day after we'd shot the basement stuff.
Okay. What made you kind of lean towards having that?
Okay, so I always wanted to do the stock footage scene. where the character is actually integrated within that stock footage. Something I'd always wanted to see. I call it the Golem's Forrest Gump moment, or his Woody Allen moment in that, I think it was the Z-League film that he made. But Nick, who is my art director and a very, very close collaborator of mine, said, maybe we need to have a wraparound, like another little act, if you will, to justify the inclusion of the stock footage scene. Otherwise, it feels too much like a post-credits scene. Like, you watch the Marvel movie, you sit through the credits, and you get the tease. He says it's something that kind of brings the story full circle. And we came up with that idea. And what I really liked, eventually what it says is just so how easily other cultures can adopt icons or figures and subvert them and taint them and reverse engineer their cause or function for the other person's religion or culture, if you will, and give it a kind of sinister edge.
I think that was a really nice, it was an interesting structural change you made to that. I think it was great. Do you still have the book?
So we still have the book. Unfortunately, the thing that I really wanted to keep from the shoot was destroyed in real time, which was the little figurine of the Golem.
Of course, yeah. That makes complete sense. And it's I had the chap that did the special effects, or the group that did the special effects. Had you seen their work before?
Yeah. So Norman Yeend, he was the stop motion animator behind every commercial that had used the medium of stop motion. I don't know, selling yogurt or a petrol station or whatever. Yeah. So I'd actually grown up with his stuff.
Oh wow, that's incredible! Yeah.
And his latest call to fame is, and this was just as we were kind of entering production of Golem, was that he animated James Wan's production company logo.
Oh wow!
So I think it's the James Wan's company, which is Atomic Puppet or Atomic Monster. The name eludes me at the moment, but the first film it was attached to was The Nun.
Yeah.
And it's been seen subsequently on The Curse of La Llorona. I think it will probably be attached to the third Conjuring film.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But it's like that spaceman flying through this city, which is being wreaked havoc on by this kind of Cthulhu tentacly kind of creature.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's all him. He did all of that.
That's incredible.
Sadly, not included on Aquaman.
Yeah, but that's really great. That must have been quite a treat to work with someone of that ilk.
And he had met Ray Harryhausen. He has a bunch of signed stuff from Harryhausen when he was here in Sydney during the 90s. So it was very nice to kind of meet someone who was like, inspired by Ray Harryhausen and had met him, and who kind of knew what I was getting at with this film in terms of its aesthetic.
That's super important. Whether it's someone that works in sound, an actor, they've all got to be on the same page as you. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
No.
How long was the post on the film in total from when you finished to the actual complete film?
On and off.
Because you had that year break of the film in two parts, so to speak.
Yeah, because real life gets in the way.
Yeah.
A real day job gets in the way. So on and off, we were working on that. I was working in post on that film for a year and a half. And during that year and a half, it was editing, it was re-editing, it was sound designing, it was mixing, it was compositing, it was color grading, it was doing ADR with the actors. It was, Took longer than I would have liked, but that's what happens when it's your side hustle, when you're not working on it full time.
Because
and when you're really attached to the product and you just want it to be the best it can possibly be.
Because it can. A friend of mine was working on a music video for quite a big band for a while, and he kept going back because he was doing it as a favor, and he wanted to work with this band for a while. He kept going back to it over a course of a year to 2 years, and it can be quite stressful, that as well, when you keep going back to a project over a long period of time. You want it to be the best, but you want it to be finished as well. So there's a disc, there's a part where you have to say, yeah, this is the film, it's done. And it's very difficult to kind of let go of the process, isn't it?
It is difficult, but more importantly, I think when you're working on something for so long, you lose all objectivity.
Absolutely.
So that's why during that time, I made sure like all the actors had even seen the film work in progress. All my collaborators had seen it work in progress. And I was like, look, I've been working on this forever, for ages, it seems. Yeah. If you feel like something needs to be reshot, if something's not clear, please let me know. And obviously they all had feedback, and
that's a really nice process, because a lot of actors and people involved behind the scenes wouldn't necessarily have that kind of collaboration after the fact.
No. And like, I felt like I owed it to them, because, the actors were very excited to see what it was look like. And obviously on the day, they were reacting to nothing. I didn't even give them, a tennis ball on, sticks, on a rod to react to. They were reacting to a corner of the room. Yeah. And I had on my phone, I had a photo of the half completed puppet. It wasn't even painted, and I was just like, look, this is what you're reacting to. We can't fix this in post. We can't fix your performance in post.
I think you did a great job with that, because the one thing that you always kind of look for, not necessarily look for, but you can spot when it's done badly, is eye lines. Like, the shot over the shoulder of the golem monster, of the soldier, the regular
going to fire at him, yeah.
Yeah, the eye line's perfect, and it's super important. And it's
we did have a bit of tape on the wall, because we had an armorer there, and obviously I had a very great armorer to actually direct that little bit of where to shoot and how to look like you're shooting with purpose and all of that.
Oh, that's really cool. That must have been. Yeah, I think the actor. I think I follow him on Instagram now through the festival, and I think everyone played their part and they did a really sterling job. How did you? Just out of curiosity, how did you find out about the Hellbound Festival?
So I found out about the festival through Alex Proyas. So Alex Proyas had made a post on one of his socials, I think it was Instagram, saying, I'm being a judge on this film festival, and submit your films to this. And then, naturally I was watching which was fantastic. And it was just like catnip for us filmmakers. All the interviews you conducted with Alex and with Dave Kendall and Ramsey Campbell, and the great thing is I know all of them. Like I'd in some capacity I had grown up with their work.
Absolutely.
So I was like, well, I can't not submit GOLEM to this. I can't not submit it to this.
And it was we were extremely lucky with our judges, and I spoke to Joe Alves yesterday about some post festival stuff, and it's been a wonderful treat, and obviously it's made us stand out a little bit, and it's helped quite a lot. But yeah, we're looking to do this. We're doing this again next year, and I've just had it confirmed that one of our judges for next year is the creator of Final Destination, Jeffrey Reddick.
I had a feeling, because you were interviewing him the other day.
So that was we asked him that after the interview finished, and I always kind of seek out people that have influenced me and my filmmaking and what I do, And what I've enjoyed over the last, say, 30 years of watching movies, and Final Destination was a big influence on me when I worked as an usher in the cinema, because it was a huge word of mouth film. So I think it came out 20 years ago now, and it was a huge,
well,
like, it was kind of pre-internet. Well, it wasn't pre-internet, but it was pre-internet word of mouth. So he's been great to speak to, and we've just spoken to Nicholas Vince, who is the chatterer in Hellraiser.
Yes.
So he's going to judge our cosplay thing we're doing next year as well. So yeah, I'll tell you a little thing that's not an interview. It's not been released yet. When he had the chatterer costume and makeup on, he couldn't see anything. He literally couldn't see anything.
Wow.
He could just breathe. And the way they guided him, you think, how are you going to walk through the set if you can't see? So they put sandbags on the floor. So they created like a channel, like a river, so he would feel with his feet.
Wow.
That's how they did it. It was such a simple thing. And it was really
crazy.
Isn't it? It's crazy, isn't it? Like, imagine being on set of a movie now and an actor couldn't see what they were doing. It just wouldn't happen.
Well, one of our national treasures in the Australian horror film community, who's worked with Alex on multiple films, is Bruce Spence. He's one of the three baddies, if you will, in Dark City, and he's the high priest kind of overseer of the dead in Gods of Egypt. But he's also been in Star Wars and The Matrix and that. But he was also, and I met him at a convention a few years ago. He was the Mouth of Sauron in the extended edition of The Return of the King.
Yeah.
And that was a role where he was on a horse and he couldn't see anything. And like he had because all the Mouth of Sauron is this huge helmet and then the mouth.
Huge mouth, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so all like he said like I was on a horse and I was delivering my lines and I couldn't see anything. And yeah, so power to all those fantastic character performers.
Was he the conductor in The Matrix Reloaded on the train?
The train man in the third Matrix,
yeah. Was he in a Mad Max film as well?
He's in
the flying...
Mad Max 2 and
yeah,
Mad Max
yeah.
So he's a fantastic character actor. Sadly, almost always under makeup because he has that unique face and.
Yeah, that's almost like Doug Jones as well. You know, Del Toro's man. Yeah, and it's incredible to speak to some of these people, and we're continuing this through fine folk like yourself and Angel Hernandez Suarez, and we're speaking to all the other filmmakers that were nominated for Best Film as well. And then we're continuing a series of interviews throughout the year and next year as well. And we're kind of circling a few people to be judges, and it's going to be kind of horror-centric again. I'd love to have possibly one or two of the other judges, but just kind of working things out at the moment. But yeah, I really appreciate you submitting your film, Ryan, and this has been an absolute pleasure just talking to you about the film as well.
Oh no, it's a real pleasure to finally meet you. I mean, you and your whole team have just been fantastic, and you've given, this has been a hard year for a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's nice to have something like this to look forward to and to be a part of. My heart really goes out to all those people who have been conducting any type of film festival, be it physical or online, during the pandemic, because what it has done is it's encouraged a sense of community in this really, really, really shitty, tough time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said recently on Film Freeway, obviously this year there was nothing in the way of prizes or that, but what you gave me and the other filmmakers was something so invaluable, which was feedback from people that all of us, I'm sure, have know about and have admired. And we how often do you submit to a festival and you don't get any feedback whatsoever, even if it does get in and is part of the program?
I always felt very connected to I know this is going to sound a bit cheesy, connected to all the filmmakers, because you're submitting something that you've used blood and tears and sweat and agony and stress all over. Obviously, there's fantastic joy of making a film as well, can be, but I respect all the filmmakers that have submitted something from a minute to 15 minutes, which was a little bit over what we wanted. But I wanted to, the amount of admin I've done over the last few months has been crazy. And I created another film festival called the Isolation Film Festival in March.
Yep.
And we have we had amazing judges for that. We got exceptionally lucky, people that work with Marvel, Guns N' Roses, all sorts of stuff. And every time I sent an email to you, there was only one or two, I'd say 3 maximum emails sent to everyone that were exactly worded the same. Everything else was really personal, because I thought it was really important. Even if your film wasn't being shown, and I've spoken to all the filmmakers that weren't, selected officially or shown, and I wanted to have that kind of personal connection with them, as feels as though they're getting that feedback. Even if they weren't picked, they're still getting feedback why it wasn't picked. And
That's
it
so
was
important.
Yeah, and that was exactly what we set out to do. Myself and Nadia, I've known for quite a long time, and Michael, who's the content community content producer. That was the key thing with our festival, because, like you said, it's been the worst year most of us can remember for quite a long time for many reasons. And we want to create this as an outlet for people's creativity and give them focus and a positive distraction. And based on what you said, we've done that, and that makes me extremely happy. And that's the satisfaction. That's what it's worth, all those hours of editing, because when you edit something and you think, oh, that's really good, what's gone into it. I know how much work went into your film, just from my own experience of that. And when you look at someone
all the work that went into all those films.
Absolutely. Like, look at Trent Shy's film. What went into his film to make the animation? Can't imagine how many hours. And Alex said it really well, in terms of you've almost wanted to tear those puppets apart yourself because of the amount of time and energy spent on it. So I really appreciate you saying those comments, Ryan, because it means a lot to us, and the feedback you've given to us on Film Freeway and here on this podcast, it really means a lot, and it makes it worth it, and that's why we're happy to do it next year as well. So we never looked for support through any external sources, but I've been contacted by a couple of people. So that's just going to help us elevate things next year. So we're never going to lose that community, the horror community aspect of it. I wouldn't want to do it if we lost that. You know what I mean? So if it turned into this big commercial thing where I've got sponsors across my t-shirt, that's not what I want to do. But those things
helps.
do.
You don't want to lose
it
the
does
message.
help, exactly, yeah. And yeah, more power to you, more power to GOLEM, because I think it's superb. And
thank you so much.
As soon as I saw the description, Prague, and then Nazi Germany and the Golem, because I'd been to Prague a few years ago, and like I said, I bought the little Golem. It's the same statue, and it was like, okay, this is meant to be. I'm meant to watch this film. I'm meant to curate this film for the festival. So yeah, and congratulations on your judge's pick again from Joe Alves. I think he picked a fantastic film, and thank you very much for coming on board.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
And if you do have enough time for next year, well, that'll be fantastic. And if you still get a chance to record a little piece to camera, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I'll take care of that today.
Superb, mate. And thank you very much, Ryan. We'll keep in touch, mate.
No, I'll definitely keep in touch with you. You've set up such a fantastic, you guys have blown my socks off for a first year festival. There's no comparison from other festivals I've seen.
I'm very grateful you to say that. Thank you very much, mate.
No worries. Take care, buddy.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.